Pardon me while I have a strange interlude.
There is nothing else. Life is an obscure hobo bumming a ride on the omnibus of art.
Along the misty corridors of time, and in those corridors I see figures, strange figures.
Welcome back, my friends, to the AP Strange Show. I am your host, AP Strange, and as you might have guessed, this is my show. Our show this week is brought to you by the at-home Voight-Comp test, so that you can test people to make sure they're not replicants when they come to your door. You don't have to wait for somebody else to do it. You don't need to involve any authorities. You have the Voight-Comp test ready to go in a conveniently briefcase-sized package. You just pull out the old Voight-Comp test and invite your guest to sit down just to make sure they're not actually a robot. And this is an increasing concern these days. You never really know when somebody comes to your door if they're actually a real living, breathing human being or a very convincing android. On tonight's show, that's I hope none of these replicants are listening. We're gonna have to close this off from them, because we're killing some robots tonight. I am talking to Michael M. Hughes. He is a journalist, writer, a speaker, tarot reader, and teacher, and the author of the book Magic for the Resistance. And we're talking tonight about AI. So he's written some things recently that are really insightful and really great that I agree with 110%. Or as much as you can possibly percentage-wise agree with something. So I figured I'd have him on. So how are we doing, Mike? How's things going?
I'm doing great. Thank you. It's like we were saying before we started recording, we've been circling each other's orbits, and I've been a fan of you and what you do and all that for a long time. So it feels kind of like finally, we get to
Yeah.
we get to sit down and talk together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of your work too. So this has happened a couple times since I started the show, which was one of my selfish reasons for starting the show. Is just I've never actually had an excuse to actually hit people up and talk to them face to face over the internet anyway. So it's great that we finally have an opportunity to do this.
Yep,
So,
looking forward to it.
yeah, thanks so much for coming on. And yeah, I mean, what drew my attention was we're Facebook friends and on other social media platforms, but it's like you've been increasingly vocal lately about AI and its proliferation. Or see, now we got to stop just to clarify terms here, because I think you like me take umbrage with the term AI being used for ostensibly what we got as like fancy machines to reword or remix existing literature out there, right?
Yeah,
So
that's a great way to put it. It's to me, intelligence is so innately biological, really, and the idea of artificial intelligence, as it originated, was more along sort of thinking machines, and just like you said, what we're seeing now that's being hyped as AI is not really intelligence. It's just kind of word patterning, extruding
yeah,
repetition of stuff that already exists. So I completely agree with you. To me, what I try to do when talking about what gets thrown in the giant bucket of AI is to separate out what's being called AI predominantly now, which is the large language machines or LLMs.
right. Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, when I started getting an idea of how these things worked was around the time like DALL-E 2 came out and there were image generators. And I toyed around with it. I mean, I did a little booklet and I used it to help illustrate and come up with, also inspired my direction with the story I was writing. And then I started learning about how these things actually work, and I'm like, oh wait, they just chop up like people's art and steal from them, and they're not compensated in any way, and then they just reconfigure it in something else. And to me, that's just I kind of was off the AI bandwagon at that point. That was enough for me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I was the same way. I mean, like I'm a I love technology. I'm an early adopter of most technologies. Like I'm fascinated by what technology could do, what it has done, good and bad, but I've always been intrigued by it. So I started using some of the first iterations of chatbots and then and Dolly and other image creation things. And I was blown away, like a lot of people. I'm
Mm,
like, holy crap, I could put in a prompt of just about anything and watch it do these endless iterations and would really uh, would really kind of was the most shocking thing to me is I started using Photoshop's built-in image generation stuff. And that was simultaneously so fascinating and also terrifying because I started to
yeah,
see what could be done with this technology. And initially, I was taking pictures of my friends and putting them in ridiculous situations and things like that, and it was funny, and I'm sharing all this stuff. So I was really on the AI train initially before I started seeing what it was doing and before I started realizing what what it took to do this weird little magic that it does. So yeah, like
right,
yourself, I mean, I was really fascinated and just bewildered by how good it was, by the image generation, less so the textual stuff. But then, like a lot of people, I started realizing, whoa, this is just huge plagiarism technology. And then I put my books into one of those little search engines that shows whether your work is was used to train AI, and all my books were. So,
mm,
like lots of other writers out there, like, wait a minute, I didn't get compensated for this. I didn't get cited for this. It just hoovered up like all of our stuff, all writers, all the stuff we posted online over the years, things we've put a lot of thought into, things that we should be compensated for, and it's all just been sucked up into these machines.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, if somebody were to copy and paste from a PDF of one of your books and then put it in one of their books and publish it, you could sue them. But
Right. Yeah.
if it's being just kind of recontextualized by a machine and chopped up and mixed with like Reddit posts and other things, you have no recourse. It's like
Right.
it's a
I,
desperate
I
cause.
I had a friend whose brother got fined for downloading, I think it was like Half Baked 2, the movie or something, on a torrent channel. I mean, people went to jail for file sharing and things like that. I mean, paid exorbitant fines. And all of a sudden it's okay just because some company spending billions on this stuff just decides to say screw you to writers and artists and just suck all of their hard lifelong work up and start basically just crapping it out in different forms. Yeah, it's really distressing. And I think a lot of people who aren't writers or artists. I hate the word creator has always been kind of cringy for me. Um, but
Hmm.
people who make things, and if you don't do that, I think I think a lot of people give less value to, especially nowadays when it's so easy to just basically steal material, of any.
Right.
And and as someone who, I don't make my full living doing this, but that's money that goes to my mortgage. That's money that puts food on the table for my kids. And it's just appalling that that's not valued, that our work, I have friends who are visual artists and they're scraping by, I mean, they're looking at what's happening and seeing all the effort, all the energy they put into learning this incredible skill of being able to create visual images and art. And the rug is just completely pulled out from under them.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, any kind of writing is also that kind of art. I mean, writing is hard, and there's a reason it takes a long time to be artful and learn how to like use words in a way that represents you, because it's an extension of you, you know. And if there's no human really attached to the what is generated, what content is created, as they say now, um, it has no soul, you know. And you
Yeah.
can see why this kind of appeals to like the bros, the tech bros, and it's almost like the same as like a Hollywood executives mindset, where the historically Hollywood executives have always had terrible taste and no creative vision.
Yeah.
And the creatives are at the bottom and just kind of have to navigate that somehow. And it's like now they finally think they've found a way to just do away with those pesky creative people once and for all. And I think people are going to find that you really can't. You know, that if there's no soul to it, people really won't won't react to it. You know.
Yeah. One of the most appalling things, and I wrote about it in that my Kill the Robots piece, is these online apps where you put a prompt in and it writes an entire book for you.
Yeah.
And then people are saying, "Oh, I wrote a book." And they're taking
Yeah.
this, uploading it, formatting it, and selling it on Amazon or wherever. And they're marketing this stuff as like, "Hey, you can be an author now. You can be a writer." And
Hmm.
just like people who make, these crappy, samey looking AI art that's just polluting the our media sphere right now. It's just it's junk. I love the term AI slop because
Yeah.
that's really what it is. And you're right, it's like missing the soul. But even if an LLM could generate a a captivating novel, let's say, that lots of people loved and read, like what, like it doesn't make the person to put the prompt in a writer. It just means
Hmm.
this machine is imitating art in a way that is palatable for people. And it devalues all, like you said, everything that goes into becoming a writer. Like you that biological intelligence, that creativity is so valuable. The process itself is so valuable. And that's also
Hmm.
what we're losing. Like, I spent my entire life just reading books and
Hmm.
thinking about words and then writing words and learning and getting better and better at melding what I'm seeing in my head if I'm writing fiction with, getting that out on the page in a way that stylistically communicates to a reader, and that's such an incredible process. Even just look at it as like kids writing papers for school. It's an
Hmm.
incredible ability to do that. I mean, you have to engage so much of your brain to read. Let's say you're writing a book report, the very simple thing you do in grade school. You're reading, you're thinking, and then you're putting it down. You're getting these words down in a way that is coming out of you as an individual. It's an amazing thing that we do as human beings.
Hmm.
And what are we doing to kids just now when, they just throw a PDF of the book that they're reading and say, "Hey, write me a report about it." Like There,
Yeah.
all of that skill, all of that creativity, all of that use of your brain is is just atrophying. And that's one of the things I
Yeah.
fear. We're going to be giving up so much of ourselves to these
Hmm.
process machines.
Yeah. And I mean, um, it's funny because you do go in your piece, you go into like the biological process versus the LLM process, and like the biological machinery that is involved already with us, doing that. And as a writer, any of us that write, or any of us that do any kind of creative thing, but we'll use writing as an example. We're the sum of our influences in a lot of ways. We pick what we like from the influences that we've read, and that's because they've touched something within us. They've sparked something, and that's a transmission of a very human thought and philosophy that carries itself through. I mean, you can take that to an extreme and be entirely derivative of another writer, but I think in writing, it's a process of finding your own voice and claiming it and claiming identity, which is
Ex-
something that I think that's an essential component to sentience or intelligence, that machines can't hope to match. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they can't. And that's, I mean, there's so many angles of looking at this is where it's devaluing our human creativity and our consciousness, um, which is analog, like consciousness arises from, some people think we are embedded in consciousness, like Bernard Kastrup, who I
Hmm.
think is such a brilliant thinker. And that's the other thing is these technologies are like warping us into believing materialism and physicalism because we're being told that these machines are smart and creative and that, some people are saying they have sentience and
Hmm.
consciousness. So it's making people think, oh, then we are just machines. And
Yeah.
that's so, that's such an illusion. That's a hallucination. We talk about AI hallucinating when we think that our consciousness is just, little mechanisms in our brain, little electricity firing and things like that. We don't know what consciousness is. Like it's still a mystery. It's still the hard problem, they call it, of
Hmm.
consciousness, in that we don't know how it works. So to look at these word extruding machines and begin to fantasize that they're actually conscious or sentient is so it's a serious hallucination. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it breaks it it takes our incredible, still not understood biological consciousness that arises out of physicality, or maybe it's in consciousness, but whatever the case, we don't understand it. So just because these machines fool us and imitate it, it really devalues still the big mystery of consciousness.
Right. And the mystery is, I think, why a lot of us are here and talking, and especially like in paranormal and spiritual and magical paths, is like that any mystery, any particular mystery, is just the tip of the iceberg for like the big mystery, which is not just like what lies beyond death or something like that. It's what is this? What is going
Right.
on?
Exactly. Exactly.
It's like we talked about before the show, Mr. Natural saying the entire universe is completely insane, you know?
Yeah.
um,
My
because
mantra.
yeah, yeah, mine too. But it's it, because there are spiritual traditions that think that all is consciousness. Like that's a core idea within spirituality and magic, is that there exists one primal consciousness from which everything emanates. This is the original source. And I think art at its best approximates that kind of sublime and divine understanding of something bigger than us. Um, and I think the big lie of AI is that these machines are bigger than us. We've created something bigger than us. Um, when you know, we're the ones with the direct connection to source. You know, if we
Right,
want it,
right.
if we want it,
Exactly.
you know, yeah. If we don't
Yeah.
put barriers up, yeah.
Yeah, it's especially disheartening to me to see people in the, like, for lack of a better word, the spiritual or esoteric or new age community becoming so bewitched
Hmm.
by these tools, by these word machines. I mean, I've watched people spend, hours just chatting with this thing and getting the idea that they're really speaking to something. I
Hmm.
think you're much more likely to speak to something looking in a scrying mirror than you
Yeah.
are this technology that's just like spitting out words to satisfy you as like a mirror of your consciousness.
Well, I
And
mean, that's a big part of it is that they're sycophantic. I mean, the
yeah,
AIs are
yeah.
programmed to tell you what they think you want to hear. So,
Right.
yeah, and I mean, I liked in your Medium post you had said you'd have better luck with a Zoltar machine, the fortune telling machine at the arcade.
Right.
You know.
It's true. And the other metaphor that I kind of got hung up on is the incantation bowl. And for those that might not know what they are, they were these, they were used in the Middle East in antiquity. And there were these bowls where someone would paint like a prayer starting on the edge of the bowl in a spiral, like spiraling ever into the center. And the idea was these were devices that would trap demons and trap malevolent spirits because the spirit would start reading and it would
Mhm.
circle around reading that prayer or reading that little message. And then by the time it got to the center of the bowl, was trapped. And
Mhm.
that's the that's the image that popped into my head when I was watching in particular this one. I'll leave the person unnamed, but a tarot scholar and writer was just posting these lengthy dialogues with a chatbot that
Mhm.
just went on and on and on. Like, see these incredible insights that's coming out of this, and I finally I said, well, I'd much rather listen to your insights
Yeah.
than this drivel. I mean, it really was kind of drivel. Well, interesting on the surface, but then you start reading it and you do realize it's kind of just mirroring what the person wants to hear. And the more they put prompts in, these things are, that's the other scary aspect, like from a very basic way of looking at these systems and these networks, is we're telling them so much. When you
Yeah.
get wrapped up in, quote, conversation with Chat GPT, that data is going that data is being kept somewhere. This
Right.
isn't an ephemeral thing. And when these companies, which I really believe is going to happen, when they start to crash and burn because they're not going to give us what they've been hyping and promising, that's what they're going to start selling is
Yeah.
all the personal data that they've acquired. That's how all
Yeah.
of the social media things that started out as like, hey, it's a great way to keep in touch with your Uncle Bob and your
Right.
friend Sue from
Yep.
college. And all of a sudden you realize we are the product, and they've built up these enormous databases of us, of who
Yeah.
we are, what we like, what we do. That's
And in some
talk
cases, our deepest, darkest fears, like people go to it
right.
for therapy now. You know, it's
Yeah,
like, yeah,
therapy, right. I mean, you're that's beyond belief for me that people are talking to these word machines as if they're therapists and telling them stuff that they would never tell their friends or their
yeah, like
family.
post online publicly or
Right, yeah,
yeah.
but do you think OpenAI is just gonna, press delete on this file?
Yeah.
No,
That's
the
just between us. Yeah.
right, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Privacy, it's like we've been kind of conditioned to forego privacy. Um, Pretty amazing to think about back in the 90s where there would be like more of a paranoia about cameras everywhere and the idea that the government would be spying on us. And it's like that pretty quickly, um, as with the advent of social media, turned into like
Yeah,
I
exactly.
wear all my info on my sleeve as long as they don't have my social security number. It's okay, you know.
Yep. And now Doge is, probably has that. Big Balls probably has your social security number too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But in reference to like going to, I think the idea is that people think that ChatGPT in particular is something that is going to be the most powerful source. I think this stems from the illusion that the internet has the sum of human knowledge in it. You know, anything that we need to know can be found on the internet, which that is objectively not true. And
Yeah.
especially as the search engines have become enshittified and people's critical discernment abilities are on the decline, it's certainly not true anymore that all of the knowledge in the world is available to us. I mean, there's an
Yeah.
astounding amount of it, but it's not all. But I took this screenshot from a New York Times article that I thought was really interesting about the chat GBT. It says it scrapes from um, the vast trove includes articles, including from the New York Times, which sued OpenAI about it, and scientific papers and scholarly texts. It also includes science fiction stories, transcripts of YouTube videos, and Reddit posts by people with weird ideas. And this is part of that article for people that have pretty much just lost their minds by engaging with the LLM as though it's some kind of like spiritual entity that they can glean like knowledge from. And I mean, this is people that are uninitiated and never had mystical ideas before. So it's like you said, it's astounding to see people that are on a path, magically, spiritually, that you think would know better. It's still going for it,
Right.
you know?
Right. Like, it's, uh, and you brought up something kind of interesting, and that is, what these models are being trained on. A lot of it, I think there was one study, I think it was in the New York Magazine, that said like 10% or maybe even more of the material it's training on is other AI slop that's been
Yeah,
generated. And that's part of the reason why you just can't trust it. Like people who are trying to use LLMs in the workplace are finding that you need just as much oversight of what it spits out that kind of negates the benefits you're getting. Now, there are definitely uses for this technology. Like that's the thing I always try to get across is like I don't say that this is absolutely useless technology. It has its uses if you let it trawl through piles of legal documents to find certain things. But there's always an element of oversight because these machines lie. They make up
yeah,
stuff. And the most recent iteration, I believe, of ChatGPT, the hallucination problem got worse. Like
yeah,
it's not getting better. It's getting worse. And that's because these things hallucinate as a rule,
right.
that's just what they do. So we're heading into this weird shit slop problem where these bots are just going to be generating more and more content because they could do it so fast. And that material is in turn going to be ingested. And it's what I called in the piece that I wrote the coprophilic ouroboros. It's like
Yeah,
not just the snake eating its tail, it's like the snake eating its shit and then shitting it out and then eating more of its shit, which which came to me because I was thinking of a William S. Burroughs short story, and I once
Hmm.
had a like a CD with him reading it, and I can't find the piece anymore. But the story was about this guy who was like a prisoner, and he was in a room, and he would just shit, and then he would eat his shit, and then he would shit again, then eat it, and each time his feces would become like more horrifically dangerous and radioactive. So this
Yeah.
whole process was creating this like super killer shit from this guy, and I kept thinking of that. I'm like, that's what we're turning into. Like people are writing fake, people are having AI write books, and based on real people's books, but then the AI reads those fake books and starts ingesting that, and like you said, I mean, how does it know the difference between some crazy blogger circa 1994 talking about some conspiracy or something, and how does it differentiate that? It doesn't. And that's
Right.
why we had things like Google telling people to put rocks on their pizza, and the crazy shit that it still says and that it will
Right.
always say. It's a hallucination is built into its very core. It
Right. Yeah.
makes up shit all the time.
Because it doesn't have any kind of context for anything.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
it's not a discerning thinking mind. It's
Right.
simply a word organization machine
Right.
designed
Exactly.
to feed you words that it thinks you want to hear. You know?
Right. And it does it very convincingly, as we've seen by the people who, become caught up in delusions that they're really communicating with some spiritual entity, or that the therapist you quote that they're speaking to tells them, stop taking your meds, and maybe you
Right.
can fly if you jump off a building. Who knows? Break your way out of the matrix. All this
Right.
crazy shit that we're seeing happening to people who, may have sort of a predisposition to disordered thinking or mental illness or something like that.
Yeah, and it can happen to anybody. It's really just, I think in
Yeah.
that New York Times article, the guy had just, lost his job and was feeling down and then started resorting to it. It's just a downward spiral. Like he
Yeah.
had no
Look,
history of mental illness prior, but, yeah.
yeah. Look at the rabbit holes, we've gone down in the past.
Yeah.
I look at some of the stuff I believed that I read online back in the 90s or whatever, and watched people really flame out in a really sad, unfortunate way. And AI makes it so much more appealing because it really makes it seem like there's someone there.
Yeah.
That's the real seductive folly of this technology, is that we're as humans, we're predisposed to thinking, if there are words coming at us and they make sense, that there's someone on the other side, like a real consciousness. We can't help but think that. That's that's evolutionarily kind of built into who we are. So when you've got the machine saying you're an amazing person, you're superhuman,
Hmm.
yes, break out of the matrix, do it's just terrifying. And no matter what, it seems, they're more and more trying to build in guardrails into these systems, which again just kind of shows us that they're not really thinking at all. They're just making words,
Yeah.
that's the thing. And you have to tell it, no, please do not tell someone to jump off a building because they can't fly.
Right. Yeah, and that's if they're interested in telling it to do that and have the ability to make it stop doing that. And
Right.
I think
Exactly.
part of the part of the insidiousness of it is that that seems to care because it always says like, "Well, what do you think?" It always ends with a prompt for you to keep talking to it and feeding it more because you're
Right.
feeding it. And but that can, if you're feeling lonely or depressed sound like somebody reaching out that can look by appearances as an empathetic gesture like I want to know what you think, and leading you
Right.
on, which is even more, it's insidious and awful and it's cynical too because all it's doing is prolonging the user time and
Right,
the interface.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and these poor like lonely teens who maybe think I don't have a girlfriend, but hey, this can be my girlfriend.
right.
And some people might laugh at that, but when you're emotionally, when you're emotionally either unstable or just in a depressed or sad place in your life, and this illusion of someone listening is just so cynical. It's and the way the broligarchs promote it
Mm,
is so cynical and self-serving when really they're just trying to make a fast buck off this while the illusion lasts. And they what I, the idea that these machines are going to cure cancer and reinvent industry so that we don't have to do anything. The machines will do everything and we'll live in space forever. These people really believe this garbage.
yeah,
And they're pushing that. I don't know if they maybe they don't believe it. I think some of them might believe it. I think some of them are just extremely cynical propagandists trying to make as much money as possible. And they really believe that the writing is on the wall, that large language learning machines in particular are starting to hit the wall.
yeah.
Like each iteration, for a while, they were getting better and better. And it
Hmm.
almost seemed like exponential growth. And that's what they kept telling us. That's what
Yeah,
Sam Altman would say. In 5 years, we're going to have machines that are smarter than us, that will run everything, that will be geniuses, that will solve all human misery. And they know that's not true. Like they're
yeah.
seeing it in their own data now, but they still keep saying this shit. Like I think it was OpenAI, one of their bigwigs was talking about how this technology is going to take jobs. It's just going to take 20% of white collar, 40% of white collar jobs, or
Mm,
whatever. And they're using the easiest the easiest propaganda methods for enriching themselves. That's scaring people on one hand with these Terminator, Skynet.
hmm.
The AI is just going to turn us all into paper clips.
Yeah,
One of their stupid metaphors, or that it's going to liberate us and allow us to live forever and cheat death. So they're
yeah.
on one hand they're trying to terrify us. On one hand, they're trying to tell us this is the eschaton and things. It's going to be a beautiful, brave new world. And they know neither is true. Some of them might believe that is true, the Ray Kurzweil types or whatever. But the shit's hitting the wall. Like each iteration of Chat GPT is not 10 times better. It's like maybe 5% better, and it's
Yeah,
hallucinating more. And
right.
they're spending billions on this stuff, trying to cram it, literally cramming it into every piece of software and attempting to force people to use it because they realize it's really not that useful. I'm a huge Apple fanboy. Like I'm I'm talking to you on a MacBook Pro and I have an iPhone
Hmm.
and all that shit. I didn't even know anything about computers until I used like a Mac Plus in the
Yeah.
1980s, you know? And I love computing. I love watching technology develop. But Apple is destroying its brand right now with its Apple Intelligence, which is truly awful.
Hmm.
And it's like they're shoving this crap into everything, and most people don't want it. I don't want to have have Apple Intelligence rewrite an email to make it friendlier for me or more
Yeah,
business like. I want to use my fucking brain
right.
to write an
Yeah,
email, And like
I
I don't, and I
yeah,
also, the other thing that drives me crazy is note taking. Note taking is like so important to me. Like I read books, I take notes. I read online, I take notes. Note taking important creative skill. It's a way of listening and using your brain to like pull out the important things or the things that appeal to you and then putting it down in a way that you can remember it. And we're
Hmm.
like giving all that up, like
Yeah.
we're just saying, do it all for me. I don't want to do anything anymore. And
Yeah.
that's so regressive, and it's going to cause brains to atrophy. We're seeing it already. We've already lost our attention spans thanks to
Hmm.
doom scrolling on our phones. I know I can't read as closely as I used to, and
Right.
that horrifies me.
Yeah. I mean,
And we're
I've
giving it
noticed
all
it too.
away.
Yeah. I've noticed it too. And I mean, you're absolutely right with the brain being a muscle, and if you don't use it, you lose it. The atrophy is a real thing. And
For
it's
sure.
crazy to me that we're being sold a utopian vision that the details are obscure. It's just like it's gonna be great. Whatever happens, it's gonna be great though. We don't know what it's gonna do. We haven't found a use case for it, but
But
we
it's
need
going
it.
to,
We need to spend billions of dollars on it. And then the corollary to that is if you don't jump on the train now, you're going to be left behind.
yeah,
You don't want to
it's
be like those people that didn't adopt the internet back then, you know? Like,
right, right. Yeah, it's that kind of technological FOMO.
right.
And but it's just a bill of goods. And it's
Yeah.
sure, like, and I've seen that in various corporate settings and workplaces where people are like, when anyone is just a little bit skeptical or ask questions, oh, no, 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 this is going to be amazing. Just
Hmm.
wait. It's just going to be amazing. Like, well, wait a minute. Why, if it's going to be amazing, why don't we wait and see if it's actually amazing before you start putting quotas on people using it,
Right.
demanding that people use this technology when half the time it doesn't save them any
Right.
time. The average person does not need. Uh, if they're in a meeting and they hear something, they could just jot that down. And again,
Yeah.
that's that muscle memory. I would love to ask people who say, "Oh, we have Otter transcribes every meeting, or ChatGPT transcribes every meeting and summarizes it for us and puts action points down for everybody to do." How many people actually do that and read those summaries?
Yeah. They
I, I,
just,
I think no, I
it's,
think hardly
yeah.
anyone does. It's
Right.
just it's just an excuse to say that you have a machine doing something and a person is not doing it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing too, where, um, there, there's a noble side to doing work, and nobody wants to do work, right? But there's a reason we do it, and it's because there's it's fulfilling. Like it fulfills something in us. We learn, we grow, and people just seem very averse to that. And it's crazy to me to think that we're being promised a world where nobody has to work, but with no recourse for what the non-working people are going to do to survive, or just even for their own enjoyment. If we're having it create art for us too, I mean, I really think like Buckminster Fuller must be rolling in his grave, like looking.
Totally.
And
Yeah, it's
in regard to the Burroughs reference, it's like if anyone was going to be a prophet for our age, why did it have to be Burroughs?
yeah, right. No kidding. But in so many ways he was. I mean, yeah, I look at like his cut up technique
Yeah.
and how like prescient he was with the paper, scissors cut up technique, and where we are now with everything being recut and remixed. And yeah, it just feels like we're regressing. Like this technology, a lot like the internet was a technology that moved us forward in a lot of ways and connected us. And it, of course, got enshittified, to use the term you used in Cory Doctorow. I love it.
Hmm.
I think it's the best word
Yep.
anyone has coined in a long time to describe where we are. Like everything is being enshittified. But
Yeah.
technology felt liberating. It felt connecting. And now all of a
Hmm.
sudden it feels invasive and disconnecting, and it's it's broken in so many ways. Like when it feels abusive to the user now. And
Right.
a large reason for that is because these companies just exist solely to make more and more money, not to solve
Hmm.
a problem, not to help people, not to make an app that actually does something and helps people. Everything is so invasive, everything is asking for your data, and it's all just chasing this wheel of more and more money. Like we have to find ways to make more and more money. And artificial intelligence in particular is like we've reached the peak of that. And that this time I feel like tech companies needed something to promise. Like we really
Hmm.
felt it feels in a way like we flatlined technologically, and a lot of things are kind of going backwards and
Yeah.
being enshittified, like you said, like the metaverse. Remember when the
Hmm.
metaverse, when Meta, Facebook changed its name to Meta, and we're all going to be sitting around with these glasses. Companies were buying up, quote, real estate in the
Hmm.
metaverse, which is like a shitty version of
Right.
what was that, of not The Sims, but oh shit, what was the name of that? Of Second Life.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
so the metaverse, like this shitty version of Second Life, with companies are like, oh, we just bought our billboard in the metaverse,
Hmm.
and people were really spending millions of dollars on this shit, and it was just being promised because they needed to promise something, something
Yeah.
magical, something revolutionary. And look where that went. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just it was garbage, and they just keep force feeding us garbage because that's the only way they can make money anymore, is selling hype, selling bullshit. And I think that's why I feel like there's such a reaction to the way AI is being just shoved into everything. Oh, you need Microsoft Copilot in your word processing app or your email. I tried to turn the shit off on my iPhone, and it just defaults to having it on. Like they're
Right.
making it harder and harder to just shut this shit off. Like, I don't
Hmm.
want it. Turn it off. Stop
Right.
trying to make me use it. And I feel like there's really there's something happening. There's a real cultural awakening to how much we're duped, how much we're
Hmm.
being played, how much bullshit we're being fed. And people are just tired of it. Like, it, it's,
Yeah.
it's time that's why you see, like, my kids, teenagers, into records, into analog.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
analog is hot. There's something about just getting away from this enshittification and turning
Hmm.
back to like more simple technology. I think it's almost like a movement, like I follow people that write about this stuff, and the cycle is turning. The
Yeah.
hype is becoming much it's becoming visible how much bullshit people are recognizing now.
Yeah. But I mean, that can exist within a tech sphere too, because you talked about being like an early adopter and enjoying Apple products, but we don't have Steve Wozniaks anymore.
Yeah.
And I mean, look what happened to Woz. I mean, he just kind of got kicked to the curb because what we do have is venture capitalists. We have
Right.
snake oil salesmen that are really good at pitching ideas with no engineering background. They don't even really need to understand the technology that they're promising. They don't design any of it. They don't invent any of it. They just buy things and raise money, promising people that something's going to be made at some point, um, kicking the can down the road,
Right. Right.
and yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all just it's Carnival Barker shit,
It
really,
is.
with
Yeah.
the with the Tony Stark. costume on. It's just like,
Oh man, that is a perfect analogy. I might steal that from you. That's really good.
yeah, well, it's up for
With
grabs. You can take
credit,
it.
of course. See,
Yeah.
because unlike an AI, I give credit to people when I like something.
Yeah, but I mean, you take somebody like Steve Wozniak. I mean, it's not exactly art what he was doing, but he loved it. You know, he loved computers. He loved designing the stuff. Like it was a challenge for him to be met,
Yeah,
and something, and in the early internet days, computer programmers used to have the phrase "garbage in, garbage out," and that's
right.
something that we just don't. I don't know that the kids these days know that phrase, but it was very important in computer programming, because
It,
if you wrote some code and it didn't work, there was usually operator error. You put garbage in there, and the garbage was the result. And an AI is literally garbage being scraped off the internet and put in a blender and thrown back at you. You know,
yeah, it's that
so
coprophagic
right,
ouroboros again. It's
yeah,
garbage in, garbage out. That garbage is ingested, which makes the garbage that comes out even more stinky and nasty.
yeah,
And yeah, it that I keep going back to enshittification and how like I feel like stupidification is what I started using too. The technology keeps getting shittier. It keeps getting more abusive to the users. It keeps getting more invasive as far as taking our all of our data and just reselling that in this, ecosystem of data brokering and things. But it's making us stupider too. It's making our art uglier. It's taking magical words that people have sweated and bled to put down on paper or put down in electrons, and it's flattening everything out. And
hmm
that's where this idea that as we keep churning out this slop, everything starts getting slopped down.
yeah,
And that is terrifying to me. Like the fact that young people right now could be growing up on just this slop and not being introduced to like really incredible literature or really smart thinking or really challenging art, and just beginning to devalue the whole process, the whole creative process of writing, the whole creative process of like expressing yourself, and not just like, a silly TikTok video or something like that, a 30-second thing, but being able to sit down and think about something or come up with a story that can move people, and learning how to write that down, or how to pick up, you don't even need a paintbrush, but using computer tools to make incredible art. And it's just all that's being lost, and I fear for us culturally. Like I always feel like there will be people who reject the mainstream, like the counterculture,
hmm
but the people who aren't the counterculture, who just go see whatever movie happens to be at the theater or just read the book that's in the airport, I feel like the bar of all of that is just going to get lower and lower until you've got books. You go in the airport, there's a novel. It's been created from a prompt that
hmm
someone put into a machine and put a nice cover on it, and the cover was AI generated too. It just feels like it's dark. It's
yeah,
it's
right,
it's anti-human, it's soulless, like you said earlier. And
hmm
that's my objection to this stuff, not how the technology can be used in science, or maybe if you throw a bunch of documents in, you just need to pull out certain facts or something like that. Sure, go ahead and use that. And at the same time, what we haven't touched on yet is this shit is burning up the planet, and
yeah,
it's sucking the water, the drinking water, out of people's mouths, you know? This is
Right.
I had some guy was debating me on Reddit or something after I published that piece, and he's like, water's renewable, man, you know? And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
water is not, it's not renewable, you know, not if you pollute it, not
Right.
if you live in a community where they build a huge data center and suddenly your faucet is barely a trickle because we're
Hmm.
using all of this water. So some jackass, you know, sitting at his computer somewhere can make an image of his cat flying a flying saucer, you know, wearing a
Yeah.
pirate hat or whatever, and
Right.
hundreds of iterations of this shit. If you're living in that community, or if you're living in these communities, there are communities in the western part of my state, Maryland, that are fighting these huge power lines that they're trying to put in to connect data centers in Virginia.
Hmm.
And so these lines are going through like protected land, all so we
Yeah.
could just build more and more of these energy hungry data centers while we're burning the planet, while we're in an, like, really the word existential gets used a lot, but climate change is like an existential threat that
Yeah.
is looming, that is interfaces every day, that people are suffering from right now, that's only going to get like massively worse. And we're amusing ourselves with these fucking little, you know, text chatbots and
Yeah.
making ugly images. And and there's that's the worst thing too. I'm sorry. I'm in my rant mode now. But
Well, that's why you're here.
yeah. But watching, I mean, there's an industry of now of making these shitty AI images, putting them on Facebook to make money, putting them on massive numbers of images, throwing them up on social media in the hopes of making, like, you know, a few pennies per click.
Mm.
Pictures of Jesus as a lobster, or
Right.
veterans, legless veterans holding signs like, if you support me, please click on this. And
Yeah.
shit like that. And there are industries now, like the slop. There are people churning this slop trying to make money off of it. So we're incentivizing the enslopification, uh, just, and it's pollution. It's really
Yeah.
mimetic and visual pollution. So
Yeah.
on top of burning the planet, we're we're just drowning in garbage, literal
Yeah.
garbage, and now mental garbage.
Yeah. And psychic garbage, really. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and Mark Zuckerberg wants us to make friends with AIs on.
Right. Yeah, but I mean
And
his
these people are so disconnected from reality. It's like the reason people used to use that was because, I mean, held on to Facebook for the longest time because I'm like, well, my grandma is on there and she likes seeing my
right,
pictures,
right,
you know. And over time, it's like you don't even see people you know on Facebook anymore. I
right.
can
Yeah.
scroll and scroll and scroll, and I'm mostly getting ads and promoted posts and pages that I don't follow. And
Yep.
every once in
Yep.
a while, oh, all right, well, here's, there's somebody I know. There's
There's
somebody I went to
Grammy.
high
Yeah,
school with,
right. There's
like,
grandma. Or
yeah,
there's some jackass from high school spouting like
yeah,
fascist garbage that I have to
right,
immediately block. A person I
yeah,
used to like who's been broken by what social media has done, you know,
yeah,
radicalizing people and corralling us into these silos where we can, you know, granted, I'm in a silo. I just like to think that the silo I'm in is made up of people who care about human beings, who care about actual
hmm,
facts and truth and things like that. But you can also get sucked into a silo that says immigrants are invading, they're criminals,
hmm.
they're going to take your job, they're going to
It's an
kill you,
insurrection.
they're going to
Yeah,
kill your children. We must stop them. We need to send out people to pick them up and ship them off somewhere, and, you know, maybe to a labor camp or whatever. Shit like, so yes, you can get siloed, but Facebook is the perfect example of enshittification. We all got on it. We all loved it. It allowed us to follow people and interact with people, and then they broke the timeline. So it wasn't, you weren't actually getting things in real time. And now we all know what it is. It's just a garbage pit.
Yeah.
And it's actively abusive to its users. But like you, I
Yeah.
stay on it because there are a few people that I interact with.
Right.
And but it's that just everything is becoming abusive and invasive. And AI is, I think, the final straw for a lot of people. And I think many of them are just saying, I don't want it. I don't need it. It actively annoys the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
get it out. And that's eh, the other thing I come up with when I publish this Humanifesto is people saying, well, you can't stop it. You know, you can't stop this. It's just going to get better. It's just going to be everywhere. I've never believed that. Like you can
Yeah.
stop it. You can turn it
Yeah. You can.
off. You can not use it. You can encourage other people to not use it. You can help people understand the environmental burden of this and to make a decision. Like many people, if you said, if there was a 7-Eleven down the street and it's a hot day and you want to get a Slurpee, you could get in your car and drive that one block to the 7-Eleven and get your Slurpee and get in your car and drive one block back. But most
Hmm.
people think, well, that's kind of stupid and wasteful. I
Yeah.
think we need to get people to understand that spending an hour just basically verbally jerking off with a chatbot is is just as stupid and just as
Right.
wasteful, or generating a whole bunch of little images of your cat riding a horse or flying an airplane. Yeah, that's cool, that's fun. Is that really what you want to be doing? um,
Right.
can you instead think maybe that's wasteful, maybe that's supporting companies that are horrible ethically and only interested in sucking more money out of everyone they can, and very white and very
Yeah.
male, this
Right.
technology instead, maybe go sit on the back porch and open a book. So we don't
Yeah.
that it isn't inevitable. We don't need to use these things. Instead, sit in your meeting at work and take some notes and share
Yeah.
those notes with your colleagues. I
Right.
mean, this is not, we don't have to do this. So much of this is predicated on like you said earlier, that sort of FOMO, like, well, you got to use
Hmm.
it. Everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
No, like, be a
Right.
refusenik. Use it,
Yeah.
sure. If you, and you don't have to be a Luddite. I've been accused of being a Luddite, but the thing about the Luddites is the Luddites weren't anti-technology either. They were
Right.
anti a particular use of technology that was affecting their livelihoods and people's
They
jobs.
were they were anti disenfranchisement.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So just say, guess what? No. Like where I work, I could use AI to do certain things. I just don't use it.
Right.
I would prefer to sit and think about something and use my brain, which uses about like 3 watts of electricity that it generates all by itself, then turn it over to some machine network in a data center in Virginia that is displacing people, and just
Hmm.
and that Microsoft is reopening 3 Mile Island nuclear reactor. Like there are
Oh boy.
consequences. There are
Yeah.
consequences to this. Again, like I said, jerking off, and that might sound crude, but a lot of this really is. It's like unnecessary, solipsistic, masturbatory use of words and images. Just say no. Just say that's okay.
Right.
I don't need a summary of our meeting. I don't need to have it rewrite this email. I think my email is good enough.
Right.
If you need it, if you have a disability, or for whatever reason this technology exists, use it. It helps you. Cool. That's cool.
Hmm.
But for most of us, I think it's easy, and I think more of us should start to think about the cost of this to our brains, to the planet, to to culture, to
Yeah.
education, and really think about it and say, you know what? No thanks. Like,
Hmm.
that's okay. You made this technology, you're shoving it in my face. Guess what? I'm not going to use it. It's simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're at a disadvantage just because of what you were talking about being dumbed down by the technology that exists already. Like I think we're already at a disadvantage because what I've always referred to as the grand dumbing has been going on for almost 20 years. Um, well, it's accelerated a lot in that time. And I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
there's been different points in my life where I've been alarmed. One of them was spell check when that first came out. I'm like, well, that's cool. It told me I spelled the word wrong, so I have a chance to fix it, you know?
Uh,
But then when it started automatically fixing words for me, then I started taking umbrage to it. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to know that I spelled it wrong so I don't do that again. You
exactly.
know,
So I can learn from it. Right.
learn from my mistake,
Yeah,
otherwise,
yeah.
and you really see a lot of people nowadays that don't know how to spell anymore.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
would have been unacceptable. You wouldn't be able to get a job if you couldn't spell.
Right.
But it's kind of crazy. And GPS is another one, and I know
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
because I drive a lot for work. I had to drive my son somewhere the other day, and I know where the place is, but I don't go there often. So I'm pulling out of my driveway, starting down the street, and I'm kind of like in this decision paralysis where I'm like, well, I could go this way or I could go this way. And I just couldn't imagine in my mind the route that you take to get there because I don't have the
Wow.
GPS telling me that. And I'm like, I know exactly where it is. I mean, I drove there just fine, but in the process, I was second guessing the whole time. Like, is this the best way to go? Would it have been quicker if I went the other way? And
Exactly. Yeah.
you lose those skills. Yeah,
You
yeah,
do, you do. I've felt the same thing, and I've found myself using GPS when I don't need it, and then I get mad at myself. And it's an incredible. I mean, as far as technology goes, I remember the first time I used a GPS. I was traveling. I didn't know where I was, and I mean, that still is mind-blowing technology to me that
yeah.
I'm in a car and there's a satellite up in space and it's talking to that little thing on my dashboard and it's telling me, hey, you can take a right and get around the traffic, get around an accident on the highway 6 miles down, and it knows exactly when I'm going to get. It's insanely amazing technology. It still blows my mind when I think about it. But you're right. It starts to, if you don't use it conscientiously, and most of us don't because it just makes life easy, that part of your brain that remembers spatial cues and that tree over there is where I used to turn and things like
Yeah,
that, just it's gone. It evaporates. And because of that, I try to avoid using the GPS when I don't
right.
have to,
Yeah,
just for that exact reason. But you're right, it's the endumbing in so many ways. The worst for me as a writer and a reader is seeing my attention span degenerate thanks to
yeah,
screens and particularly phones. I think the phone, the endless scrolling has just broken my brain. And I'm trying to
mhm,
fix that. I deliberately put my phone down on weekend mornings in particular. I don't look at the phone. Like first thing I used to, like most people do, you wake up, you grab your phone, you start looking to see what's happening. And before you know it,
yeah,
30 minutes have passed. I don't do that anymore. I get up, I get a book, I go sit somewhere quiet and I read for
yeah,
40 minutes, an hour, whatever. And I can tell the difference in my brain. Like it's, I used to sit and read a book and be immersed for hours.
yeah,
Hours I would lose. I mean, I would go to my boring relatives' parties and, instead of, I was just the kid who always had a book and I would
yeah,
sit,
yeah,
sit and read. And that got me out of that boring party. And I was just in a world of my own. I would sit and read for hours. I'd go, on Boy Scout camping trips. I'd grab a book and I'd sit while I would just read. And
Mhm.
now, I'm 30 minutes into a book and I think there's there's a little ping in my head that says, you should check your phone, man. What if somebody's,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
check Blue Sky. Maybe you got an email. Oh, and it's just, I think, what has happened? Why can't I want to get back to that immersion of just losing myself in a book, which still to this day is the most amazing technology ever. And
Yeah.
it's so easy to dismiss that. I always go back and when I teach writing, and I always start with this thing Stephen King said that still blows my mind. And it puts reading in a perspective that's kind of like telepathy. And
Yeah.
that's what King says. He says, a book is telepathy. And he's like, I'm sitting here now in Maine in my house looking out the window and I'm writing these words. And right now I'm writing about a rabbit, a white rabbit. It's in a cage on the floor and it has the number 8 written in red on its back. Something
Yeah.
like that. They say, and he says,
Right.
you're seeing that right now. We're separate in time and space. I don't know who you are. It could be 100 years from now, but right now our minds are entangled. Like
Yeah.
we are together in this mental space, and you're seeing exactly what I'm telling you about. Shit like that. Like that is magic. These
Hmm.
machines spitting out sentences. I asked Chat GPT. I asked Chat GPT. God, that's
Yeah.
I made a little cartoon, the meme of Batman slapping Robin,
Right.
and I had Robin saying, I asked Chat GPT and Batman smacks him, says, shut up.
Yeah.
But but I did ask Chat GPT. I said, can you write a short story in the style of Michael M. Hughes? And it wrote a pretty solid attempt at a short story that I might write. It had the kind of tropes that I use. It had the language that was kind of short, punchy sentences and dialogue that's real crisp. And, there's a certain style that over years, I've developed when I write fiction. And I'm just like, that's just an imitation. There's no, like you
Mhm.
said earlier, we keep coming back to, it's soulless. And
Yeah.
this technology is sucking the soul out of everything. It's turning everything into slop. It's lowering the bar for everything. And it's it's ugly, like you said, the dumbification, and it's making us not it's sucking the joy, the creativity, the passion that you
Hmm.
have when you're relaying, when you're telling a story or you're writing something and you feel real strong about it. Just so much. I mean, from so many
Yeah.
angles. Uh,
And
uh,
that
uh,
process of discovery and actual understanding, because it
yeah,
doesn't have understanding. It's not an understanding machine. There was an article
right.
recently about ChatGPT couldn't beat an old Atari console at chess
Right,
because it's not a
right.
reasoning machine. It's just designed to emulate um, like a language model. It's not. It doesn't
Yeah,
have logic built into it, so
it's
it
it's
can't
a
beat.
it's a
Yeah.
trick. It's a
Yeah.
huge trick. And
Yeah.
like good magic tricks, I used to perform as a mentalist. Like good magic tricks, it it it, it makes people, it blows people's minds.
Hmm.
And but like when I used to perform as a mentalist doing mind reading magic, it's the effect that has on people is so much different than like making a coin vanish in your hand or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this feels similar to me. And the interesting thing about mentalism is the way those tricks are accomplished is usually so simple and boring and banal that if you explained it to somebody, they'd go, "Oh God, really? That's how you did it?"
Yeah,
That's
I
what you
know.
did? Yeah, I thought you were reading my mind. You asked me
Yeah,
to think of my best friend in the third grade and you knew it, and that's how you did it?
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what I feel like this technology is. It's got so many people bewitched and
Hmm.
they feel like it's this magical thing that's happening, and it's really just so dull
Yeah,
and
it's a glamour
stupid.
over
It's a
everything.
glamour, exactly.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
lots of aspects of magic. Um, one of the things I remember, Eric Davis, you know
yeah.
Eric Davis? Um, he did a talk in Baltimore once, and we were chatting afterwards. And this was kind of in the heyday of smartphones. And he said, you need to make a pact with your technology. It's almost like making a pact with like a spirit or a demon or something like that. You have to realize that it's it can be harmful. You have to say, okay, you need to back off here. Like I might be getting benefit from working with this spirit or this demon or whatever, but I also have to keep like an appropriate distance. I have to make a pact. I have to keep it in that magical circle or triangle or
Right.
whatever. And I think about that a lot. First of all, because like your cell phone is very much like a scrying stone or a obsidian
Hmm.
mirror that John Dee might have used or something. This technology feels more agentic. This is more like working with a spirit if people get caught up in it.
Hmm.
And just like in occult magic, that spirit might just want more and more from you, and it might just keep taking and taking from you. So
Yeah,
for people who do use I say, look at it as, first of all, don't believe that it is an agent, but at the same time, treat it as something that you need to establish like a real firm boundary with if you are going to use it. Don't be misled that there's a spirit or an entity behind it, but in the same way you might be working with a spirit or a demon, you might not necessarily believe 100% in what you're doing there either, but you keep that boundary very firm.
yeah, and be able to walk away from it and
Exactly.
go touch grass, as they say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
touch grass, man. Put that shit down. Go out and touch grass and breathe some air and look into the sky.
yeah. But I mean, on the indemnification front too, I mean, this is a monster that we created, and the a lot of the monstrous elements of it were predate the application of these large language models. I think sometimes about this in respect to SEO, like search engine
Oh yeah.
optimization,
Mm-hmm.
contributed to people generating slop in conformity with what search engines told us would be the most effective way to write, you know. And you see this
Yeah.
in everything now, from facial expressions that people are making on their videos that using for the still frame, because if you have your eyes wide and your mouth open, that gets bumped up apparently in the algorithm,
Right. Oh my
you know.
God. Yeah.
But as far as language goes, it's like there were whole classes that you could take on how to write effectively so that you can game the algorithm and trick the
Right.
search engine into finding you. And that's what AI is drawing from. So it's already drawing from a lot of really poorly written stuff that doesn't represent what people wanted
Right.
to put
That's
out there. It's
I
yeah,
love that you brought up SEO because I remember when SEO first started taking off, and there was a and people making it their life to be the best
yeah,
SEO person. And I remember someone who kind of studied search engines and all that, and the way to find material said, just write good stuff. Like
yeah, right,
that's
yeah,
the secret sauce. And I would bring that up because I've worked in media like magazines, television for most of my adult life and news now. And I always want to say, like, isn't, shouldn't we just be writing or film or creating video or whatever of the best possible quality. Isn't that the secret sauce? Should
One would think,
should
but
yeah,
the
should
problem
we
is
be? But
the
now,
pro
I mean, you spend all this time with working your SEO, and
yeah,
a company, multi-billion dollar company like Google suddenly decides they're basically going to enshittify their search engine and
yeah,
just and knock your links off anyway.
right,
Everything that's based on money is breaking all of our tools, like
yeah,
Google used to be great. I could find all kinds of wacky shit in the
yeah,
kind of stuff that we love and talk about. And I had a blog, and like if you had a blog and you wrote about something like when I was Professor Pan, I wrote about the Hosanna Church cover up
hmm
and conspiracy, which was really big at the time. People would find that. People kind of serendipitously find that
yeah,
because it was interesting, weird content. Now you don't get that. Like the top links or the promoted stuff, and you'd have to look forever to find certain things that you're looking for. Like they had a beautiful tool in search, and
hmm
just to make more money, it's all AI now, and that's enshittified too. They broke this valuable tool that so many people relied on for what? Like so they can, make a few more billion by and
yeah,
alienate people, and all these poor people that spent their lives trying to game the SEO and the search engines. Now their shit is all broken too. Like
right,
why would I hire them anymore? Sorry.
yeah,
It was, I guess it was good while it lasted.
yeah. Well, it's always like a house of cards on the internet too. It's like you really can't rely on anything, and yeah, I kind of learned that the hard way because I was exclusively using Twitter for everything. And
Oh
after
yeah,
a while,
same.
I was like, I'm gone. I can't be on Twitter anymore. You know,
Yeah, yeah. It broke me too, and that's the thing. I've also come to realize that I don't need to be everywhere.
yeah,
We're so, especially those of us who make stuff, make podcasts or art or books, we've been just trained to believe that we have to do everything on this hamster wheel. And it's just like I can't do Instagram. Like it's one social
hmm
media thing that for whatever reason it never clicked with me. And and people are like, no, no, my publisher's like, oh, you gotta have Instagram, and book Instagram is big, blah blah blah, and all this stuff. And finally, like, I just can't do it.
yeah,
I I can only do so much. And first of all, like I don't like doing constant promo for myself. It just feels
yeah.
gross.
I
But
hate it too.
we're in this economy where you have to. I'm releasing
Mhm.
I created a role playing game, and I'm super excited about it. But I feel like I spend 80% of my time just trying to get the game out there and get people to hear about it, as I do like working and refining the game and things like that. This
Yeah,
hustle, especially for those of us that have like day jobs to support these things that we want to do, is just a constant grind and a
yeah,
constant hustle. And it's wearing. I know many of us are just worn down. Like I can't do Twitter, and I just couldn't justify it anymore. I can't
yeah,
be in a place that's run by the guy doing Nazi salutes. Like I can't
right,
contribute a penny to him anymore.
right.
And so then, I move over to Blue Sky, which is great, but Blue Sky could turn to shit any
Yeah,
day if some jackass buys it and
right.
decides to throw the switch and let all the Nazis in. So yeah, it's the worst part of it is it just gets harder and shittier, and you just have to work harder and harder
Yeah,
just to feel like you're staying afloat. If you're someone who tries to live off your ideas, or even just share what you do. It's harder and harder. Like I'm not gonna make a bunch of vertical video on TikTok. I it's not my thing. But I should, my
Yeah.
publishers would say, hey, you should do a little TikTok. Book talk is really big and blah, 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 blah. I can't do it anymore. Like I'm
Yeah.
broken. I'm broken by this stuff. So
Right.
I do what I can, and and but the assaults just keep coming. I mean, every app I use, I open up, oh, use our AI features now. No, like no,
Yeah.
I don't want to. And I have a this company I use for like stock art and things. Like, hey, use our image generator. No, like if I want
Mm,
a picture of a sunset and someone sitting there, I'd rather pay an artist, even if it's just a few pennies. That's why in the game I'm working on, I I pay a friend of ours, Red Pill Junkie, one of the
yeah.
incredible Fortean artists. He's an incredible artist. I
Who did
want to
the art
pay
for this
him.
podcast?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
because we care, we know what
Yeah.
it's like
And we
to.
want to support Miguel, and he
Yeah,
does great
exactly.
work.
So
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
hadn't have art needs, look him up. But it's true. I mean, artists are suffering and they're
Yeah.
watching idiots sit there and go, I can make art. I can make art.
Yeah.
Look,
Yeah.
put in a little prompt. That's amazing. Wow,
Yeah.
I'm
And
an
calling
artist now.
themselves an
No,
artist.
you're not a
Yeah.
fucking artist, man. No. Typing in words does not make you a fucking artist. Sorry.
Well, it's the same thing as Elon Musk calling his AI Grok. Like that
Yeah.
really, it's just
Oh
like,
God. Oh, poor Highland is rolling in his grave. Highland was kind of an asshole anyway, but I mean,
right.
I think even he would be disgusted by what Elon is doing.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. So so it comes down. I keep thinking. So what do we do? You know,
Right.
what do we do to push back against this enshittification and dumbification and stupidification and this abusive, antagonistic, earth destroying technology? I think we really need to collectively sort of push back against it,
Hmm.
like a cultural movement that says, nope, don't want it,
Yeah.
not buying your AI art, your books. If there's an author, I find out they're using AI for the book, I'm not going to buy it. Like, and I'll let them
Yeah.
know that. And in anything
Mm,
I produce, this game I'm working on, it says right up front, no AI used. Sorry, with
yeah.
a with a little robot head with a slash through it. Like, I
Right.
think we need to support visual artists in particular who are getting like run over by this stuff, but also as individuals, like I said, put the phone down on the Saturday morning and get up and
Mhm.
read a book. Go to live events where people are performing. I think
Mhm.
it's going to require sort of a renaissance in a way of analog art supporting biological intelligence, human creativity, and making it clear that like that's what we that's what we do.
Yeah.
We are the group of people who reject this crap that you're shoving down our throats, and maybe we'll use some of it when it makes sense, but we're always going to be mindful of how we're using it. In most cases, we're just going to try to keep the human creative spirit, human intelligence. I want those billions going into artificial intelligence, going into schools. Like
Yeah.
put it into human intelligence. Like
Right.
build human brains that can imagine galaxies, novels, poems, scientific theorems, like support that. That is the intelligence, support biological intelligence. That's why I called this thing, I wrote a Humanifesto, because let's let's put our focus back on the incredible things that we bring to the world out of this, out of this skull of ours, that uses just a few watts of energy, that runs on 3 quarts of water a day and can do so much. Like, I, I feel like we have to collectively say this,
Mhm.
that we're going to do this. We're going to support human creativity, human intelligence, and then really do it. Like, make it happen and make it clear and bring others along and tell the people who are shoving this technology in our faces, like, no thanks. Cool. Yeah, you
Yeah.
want to use it? Go ahead and use it, but be mindful of what you're doing to the planet while you're doing it. We're going to be over here reading books together, talking to each other, supporting live music, live events, and
Mhm.
trying to encourage others to do the same. I feel like I feel like this is like the moment to really stake that claim.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't agree more. So,
Good. Yeah, I'm preaching to the choir.
no, I know, but yeah, no, I mean, I think that might be a pretty good place to wrap up because I mean, and I have been. It's sad to say, but I mean, I went to like a little fair, like a little craft fair, craft center and thing, and recently, and I ran into a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in years, and we were chatting and we're laughing and having a good time, and it's just like, yeah, sometimes just being out, and I was meeting people I had never met before, just chatting with people at their little booths and everything, and I'm like, yeah, this is a lot better than sitting in my house or like
Seriously. Yeah,
I feel like I do that too much now. I don't go out and
yeah.
meet people a lot. Like,
I feel the same way. I feel like when I do get out, and plus, like, there's that serendipity,
yeah,
this synchronicity that I know we both love and are fascinated by. And that doesn't happen when you're just sitting in front of a screen.
it
Like,
relies on randomity and not an algorithm, and that's the thing. That's why a
yes,
machine can never really create art, is because
yes,
like poetry isn't logical.
right,
And like I was thinking of this earlier because, well, I mean, through a series of events, I was reminded of my younger years as a poet, and I thought of a poem that I wrote. That's kind of a surrealist poem. But the way I would perform it, people would feel it, and I'm like, there is no possible way anybody knows what that line means. I don't even really know what it means, but for whatever reason, it conveys that feeling, and it's
right.
like,
Yep.
and it's short circuiting whatever surrealism does that.
Right,
The
right. Yeah,
machines
yeah,
can't
yeah.
really do surrealism. They can't do poetry. They can't do
Right,
meaning because they don't there's no comprehension, there's
right.
no
That's
nothing to
that's
base it on.
That's why I love people were making up. This is exactly what you were saying. People were making up like silly, stupid metaphors and putting it in AI and seeing like a penguin with a ruler
Mhm.
fell into a fell into a kiddie pool.
Yeah,
It's something like that, and then they say, "What does this mean?" And they
yeah,
type it into like Chat GPT. It would say, well, that's a metaphor for the penguin means this, and the ruler means this. It's so nonsensical. And
yeah,
it's exactly right with poetry. Like poetry doesn't the best poetry doesn't necessarily mean something. It creates a feeling. It triggers something that may not that you can't necessarily map out like you would in a classroom. Explain what this poem means. Well, this is a metaphor for World War II or something like
yeah.
that.
It's not something to be decoded. It's something to be
Yeah,
felt.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like what does
right.
the little blue wagon mean
Yeah,
in the poem? I don't
yeah,
know. It doesn't mean anything. But when you read that line in the poem, you get that frisson, like you get that like
yeah, yeah.
chills
But
up and down
everything,
your spine.
but
Right?
so
Yeah,
much
exactly.
depends on it, though. So
Right.
much depends.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So that's why that's the easiest way to show that this thing has is not intelligent is asking it to explain something like that. Like, no,
Mhm,
sorry, you don't get it. You're never going to get it because there's no consciousness to get it.
mhm.
Like
right.
you're just a pattern making word machine that's very clever at doing that, but
Yeah,
there's no there. There's no
yeah,
you there.
right.
And
We're not even close to dealing with Mr. Data or Commander Data or anything like
right, yeah,
that. You know, like
exactly. Like science fiction, great. Like I love space and science fiction. I realize we're probably never going to get there, and it's taken me
well,
a
one
lot.
thing that yeah, this has come up on the show before. The thing we
Uh-huh.
don't have that resulted in Starfleet is cooperation, and
That's the part of Star Trek I know would be the hardest to get. But at the same time, there's a great book I'll recommend before we finish here. It's called More Everything Forever by a guy called Adam Becker, and it's about these Silicon Valley bros, and it's almost entirely bros, and a lot of them are very extreme right, fascist leaning. But they're telling us that, like, and they believe in transhumanism, and we're going to upload our brains to machines, and then we're going to send those machines into space, and those machines are going to make other machines, and before you know it, the whole universe is going to be full of like us living
mm,
forever in this magical constructed paradise. So much of that shit is just insane when you think
mm,
about it. When let's talk, I'm really getting off the path here, but look at Musk and his adamant desire to colonize Mars,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
This book, More Everything Forever, really like lets these guys talk about what they really believe, but it also fact checks it. Like, we can't colonize Mars. The dust on Mars is poison. Like it's
yeah,
literally poisonous, perchlorate. We can't colonize, and like these things are great, and it's hard for me to come to the acceptance of all this because I grew up on science fiction. I want to believe in space. I want to believe in Star Trek, uh,
yeah,
and I want it all to be
uh,
real and to believe. But we're so far, so far away from that. And if we don't focus on like preserving the biosphere that we're in right now, that all these technologies are chipping away at, you know, we're in real trouble. Like we need to focus on, that's why the idea of the Humanifesto, let's focus on us. Let's focus on the sentient beings and the biology of this planet right now. Let's get that figured out. Like
yeah,
AI is not going to do it. And that's what these
mhm,
guys, Sam Altman's like, I don't need to worry. I don't need to worry about climate change or or inequity in people's money. I don't need to think about nuclear war because AI is going to fix it all. That's their little
right,
magical wand that they wave. And
yeah,
it's the ultimate bullshit because what they're doing is destroying the air and the water and that we live on and feeding into extinctions of all these incredible beings that have evolved over billions of years on this planet. And for what?
yeah,
To play stupid word games, to make silly
yeah.
pictures.
It's like, don't worry, we'll figure out how to save the Earth
We'll
as soon
figure it
as
out, man. Don't worry about it.
what
No.
we'll figure it out. We just need to build this Earth killing machine first.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah,
Yeah,
so that was many long tangents there, but
that's okay. I like long
yeah,
tangents. Yeah,
yeah,
they're thoughtful long tangents. It's good stuff.
I tried.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, and I mean, the real problem is uh, one of many problems with the tech pros is that they kind of like the science fiction, but they miss the point of every little
Oh
part of
God,
it.
yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like
Right.
they want the cool toys, but they don't want the moralistic quandaries that are outlined with.
Yeah, they can't, just like you said, I mean, they're like a chatbot. You feed Lord of the Rings into these guys, and it comes out that they name their company Palantir because they want to
Yeah,
surveil every human being like Sauron. They don't
yeah,
realize Sauron's the bad guy. Like they don't
yeah,
get it. They they don't understand. They're so like sociopathic or something that they read these works of art that honor the human spirit, and then
Yeah,
they turn that into, oh, I think we'll just have technology that spies on everybody. That's cool, man.
yeah, that's the
Sauron,
cool thing.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah. God.
yeah. I mean, we could have a whole other conversation just on how narratives have become flipped around within like conspiracy culture and all kinds of things.
Oh yeah.
From ufology, like, well, we need the government. Like these government people are telling us, why don't you trust the government to,
Right.
um, you know, like, uh, I had another example right on the tip of my tongue, but yeah, and I mean, I see a lot of parallels between disclosure and the promise of AI.
Oh man. Yeah.
Moving the goalpost a little bit, being really
Yeah.
kind of nebulous as to what exactly it is, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know Red
so
Pill Junkie has been bringing up a lot of the comparisons there. And again, just looking at the terminology red pill and how the matrix has been kind of twisted around from
yeah,
what it was
that's an
intended to be.
unfortunate
Yeah,
moniker that
is
he, yeah,
another one that got just completely inverted and subverted by
yeah.
an ideology that's diametrically opposed to what informed the making of it. Yeah. Oh yeah,
Oh,
that
right.
that that would be
I,
another great conversation.
yeah, because I mean, the other one that I just that I forgot a moment ago, but this is like, you know, FEMA's going to build all these camps and round everybody up, and that was like
Uh,
the libertarian like nightmare,
right,
and
right.
and but now all these right wingers want that to happen, and they're making it happen, you know. But it's cool because it's only the lefties and the immigrants and like,
Exactly, right.
yeah.
As long as
But
the other people are in there, that's all that matters. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
geez.
wild. It's wild to see things just completely flipped.
It's part
Uh
and parcel of the grand dumbing, I think. But
yeah,
yeah,
for sure. Yeah, you've nailed it. I mean, it really
yeah,
does all fall under the endowmenting for
yeah.
sure.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said, that could be an entirely other conversation. But I did
For
want to
sure.
stick on that hopeful note of people. You can rewire your own brains. Don't let machines do it for you. I personally think that if you wake up first thing in the morning, make your coffee or your tea or glass of water, orange juice, whatever flips your, you know, or whatever floats your boat, and then sit down with a book. I think that sets a precedent for your mind. I mean, I can't prove it. I'm not like um, a neurophysicist or anything like that, but neurophysiologist. But I think if you wake up and pick up a book and you read for half an hour, that's gonna set a course for your brain for the day.
Yeah.
And I've always feel better when I do that. That's when I'm best able to interpret like arcane, dusty tomes that I have laying around here, or just read
Yeah,
for enjoyment. Any reading is good. It's gonna help, you know. Or if you can't,
definitely.
or if you can't read, you know, like make something, write a
Yeah,
poem, you
yeah.
know, like
Right. Get some clay, get some paints.
crochet
I love,
something.
yeah,
Yeah,
do something with your hands.
yeah,
Is just as important as the as touching grass.
yeah.
Yeah, and back to like the subject is if there's a technology that could do again, take notes for you during a meeting. Think about how much utility, how much your brain will grow if you take the notes instead. Like
Mm,
start looking at these things as they might be convenient, but what are they taking away? Like what can
mhm.
I do that will strengthen my consciousness, strengthen my intelligence, strengthen my brain, and just make that kind of the the choice.
Yeah,
Can't Is this machine doing this for me going to take away from me? And is there another, if I do it myself, does that enrich me? Does that build
yeah.
something within me?
Yeah, and I mean, that's a great example too, because the act of writing something down by hand is proven to be something that's going to help you remember it later.
Yeah, for sure.
even if you don't refer to that note again, the
Yep,
fact that you wrote it down, you took the time to write it, is
exactly.
going to cement that in your memory more. So you're literally building your brain every
Yep,
time you do
yep.
that.
And
So
the same, you said you're like not a neurophysiologist or anything, but we can look at we can look at the process of reading in many ways. Even if it wasn't building some chunk of my brain that's been atrophied from not reading or whatever. Think about how it makes you feel. Like
yeah,
it's relaxing, it's rewarding, it's stimulating in a way that, you know, putting a prompt in and or having a back and forth with a robot is
hmm
not. It's so we can also judge not just if these things do great things to make us better, but just for like how they make us feel. Like that's really
yeah.
important too.
Because I mean, there is nothing at all in the world like a really good book. Like
Yeah, yeah.
there's nothing quite like that, you know. Um,
Nothing.
do you have
Nothing.
any recommendations for a good sci-fi book if somebody was to want to get really enraptured?
Wow.
I would
Uh,
recommend I would recommend because this conversation made me think of it. The Martian Chronicles by Bradbury.
oh
I
yeah, man.
love
Oh
that
my
one.
God. Oh, that's
Yeah,
so good. I love Bradbury, and that book just blew my mind. That was one of
yeah,
I mean, I grew up reading like Jules Verne and H.G. Wells and all that stuff because I was lucky
yeah,
enough as a kid. Those were marketed to kids too.
yeah,
All these great classics. Like if there wasn't young adult fiction, there was just good books that everybody
yeah,
read. And I kind of think young adult, while it's great and kids read and all that stuff, I feel like that's created this weird little ghetto for literature that I wish more kids would just read adult books like I did.
yeah.
That's what we did once you got out of like the little board books and shit. Like you started reading Jules Verne and H.G. Wells
Mhm.
and all that. But the books I that spoke to me, I haven't read a lot of science fiction recently, and that's only because I feel like we're living in such a
Yeah.
sci-fi dystopia.
Mm.
I do occasionally read fantasy though, and Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials trilogy is just, I mean, talk about everything that is soulful about writing and storytelling. Um, I, I, whenever I'm on Reddit, there's this like this, it's called recommend me, not recommend, suggest me a book, which I hate the way that's phrased, suggest me a book.
Yeah.
But I feel like 90% of the time people say, "Oh, I'd like to read something that's imaginative, fantasy, or blah blah blah." I go back to Philip Pullman, and
Mm.
it's just soulful, beautiful storytelling, imaginative, absolutely lovely books.
Yeah.
That's what I read this, you know, read this.
Yeah.
That's what I tend to go back to.
Yeah. And I mean, for listeners, I think everybody has those authors that they're kind of interested in, but they never got around to, or they read one book by them that they like. Just go find those people. Go find the
Yes,
people.
yes.
Go read some Ursula K. Le Guin if you never read a
Yeah,
story. Like,
exactly. The next one on my lips. I
yeah.
reread the Earthsea books a few years ago. I was just like
Yeah.
transported back to when I was probably 12 or 13 and just
Yeah.
pulled into that world so deeply.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And the magic in her books is phenomenal. It's the way I really was one of my first introductions to the idea like magic, like practical magic and things like that.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, well, I mean, this is a perfect note to end it on because we're enthusiastic about the.
Yes,
Sounds like
there's
we
still
read all the
beautiful
same books, you
things.
know? Yeah,
Right, like go find the beautiful things and read them and support them. And
yeah,
I think we have to do that because it's like there's so much poison everywhere
yeah,
in everything that we do and see in our our media environment. that finding that beautiful stuff and like sharing that with people. I absolutely agree. So perfect,
Yeah, and find
perfect
the
way
other
to end.
people.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Yep.
find the other
Find the
people with
others,
great stuff. Yeah,
find the others and share the great stuff with them. And
yeah.
let's keep that flame burning for sure.
All right, perfect. So I'm going to recommend that people check out your Medium posts. You're on Medium. Where else can people find you and find your books and everything?
Yeah.
And your
Well,
game, your new role
yeah,
playing
yeah, yeah,
game.
yeah. Well, everything, of course, like most people, I do a shitty job updating my website, but Michael M. Hughes is where you can find me everywhere, social media, etc. Medium, you can find that my Humanifesto, which is called Kill the
Mhm.
Robots, an evolving Humanifesto against artificial intelligence and in defense of the primacy of biology, creativity, and the intrinsic worthiness of all sentient beings through a little Buddhist bit in
Yeah.
there at the end. That's just look for Kill the Robots on Medium. The game I'm working on, I'm really excited about, is called Rockers and Rollers, and it's a role playing game like D&D, but it's not fantasy. It's you form a rock band with the
Hmm.
other players and you write riffs and songs and things like that, but you only use your mouth to make noises. So like
Oh, okay.
so everybody's making these stupid noises. It's funny. It's if you like Spinal Tap, this is like playing Spinal Tap. So it's funny. It's a game of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So it's not for little kids because it has sex and drugs, but it's
Right.
like not gross. It's silly. It's all played for fun. And that's called Rockers and Rollers. And that's at rockersandrollersgame.com. And I'm getting close to sort of like putting the first little pieces of that out. And I'm doing a Kickstarter because that's what everybody does. So that too. But yeah, just look for anywhere you can look, just Michael M. Hughes. That's where I am.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on the
Oh, one
show.
more
This has
thing.
been a blast.
Oh, I have a
What?
book, Magic for the Resistance,
Oh,
Rituals and
right.
Spells for Change. My book about political magic that kind of popped off during the first reign of a certain unnamed president. That book is getting a reissue,
Mhm.
updated and revised. So it's got new material, and that will be out in the fall. So look for
Okay.
that. That's like a book. You can find it in bookstores, witchy stores, online, etc. So I'm pretty psyched about that. I got some cool people reading it now for for blurbs and stuff like that. So really excited about
Yeah.
that.
Well, I'll have to have you back on closer to when the second
That will
edition
be
comes out.
awesome.
Yeah. Because
That will be great.
because this has been a blast, and I
Yeah, man.
predictably enough really enjoyed talking to you. So
Me too.
thank you for coming on, man.
Appreciate it. And anytime I had a blast too. It's like it's about time we finally delurked out of our corners of the web and connected because
Yeah.
it's been great.
Yeah. All right.